talk about Alexa, you can think about, oh, there are like 100, I can think about 100 ways to improve Alexa, but these 100 features matter a lot. Most of the time, we don't.
Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, as always, Christian D. Evans. And guys, this next guy is a trailblazing principal and computer scientist at Apple with a passion for learning, building, and researching cutting-edge technologies. With an impressive background in machine learning, artificial intelligence, this man has made significant contributions to the field, including launching state-of-the-art vision language models and spearheading groundbreaking projects as an accomplished entrepreneur and mentor. He has revolutionized customer service with AI and garnered recognition for his outstanding leadership skills. With a PhD in ECE and a master's in information engineering, this man's expertise spans speech recognition, computer vision, and entrepreneurship. With a drive to explore the intersection of technology and innovation, he continues to make waves in the industry, inspiring others and pushing boundaries. Please welcome my next guest, the one and only Liangliang Cao. How are you doing, my man?
Hi, Christian. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. I feel energetic when you
Well, man, I'm very energetic and very excited about our conversation, because what I found so interesting, you and I are seeing at the macro level, there's a lot of excitement from investors deploying a lot of capital toward, a lot of AI ventures, to the VC space, to, just a lot of talk about it, to, marketing and integrating their AI to really see to simplify and be more productive in our resources and our capabilities by leveraging AI. And it's just really, really amazing. But Liangliang, what's so incredible is you have been on this forefront years before it hit mainstream, right? You were going through the ups and downs. You had to develop certain code that was not even established yet, but you had to figure it out. And I want to dive into really just jump right into it. But before we dive into it, I want to ask you, you got your PhD in machine learning. You got a lot of this stuff. You're very smart and computer scientist and very accomplished. What got you into it? What was your passion? What was your love? What got you? What drew you in to this kind of environment, man?
To be honest, I think it's mainly luck or just some randomness. I think the story happened when I graduated. I joined IBM. At that time, IBM was doing Watson. Watson has multiple meaning, but at that time it's like they build a machine which can outperform human players in Jeopardy game. It's more like a question answering, open domain question answering team. So I get some friends, close friends in the Watson team. At that time, I was learning or using the computer vision neural networks. We had some collaboration, and then later, because of some company-wide change, a personal change, we decided to do a startup. At that time, we're thinking about to apply the technology to, like Watson, to customer service. And everything is just no planned, and we just talked with some investors. The investor said, "Oh, the machine learning can be used to like customer service." And then we start a company, and then later we join Google, then so on and so forth. And then these days, I think everybody is excited about GPT-4. So everything is not, it's surprising to me. So people these days, when looking back, it's like, what lesson do you learn? The lesson learned that life is never planned. Like technology is never planned, always surprise ahead.
It is a constant evolution, 100% is that journey of it. And so, like you mentioned, what I found interesting, NVIDIA CEO, he mentioned where he's been deploying a lot of capital, but also he's like, finally, he's seeing all of his fruition of what he deployed in regards to energy, time, resources, whatever it is. And finally, AI is hitting everything. The technology, the algorithms, the computers, all that stuff is finally hitting. And, he was mentioning like, wow, this is actually really sweet. And, he was betting on that big time. And I want to talk a little bit micro, Liangliang, because you were, like I just mentioned, you were also on the front end of this, where some of this coding or some of the algorithms or some of the calculus, I should say, was not actually developed yet to be able to, actually deploy, but there were levels to it. So let's dive into like what did you find so interesting, or what did you find so difficult about that first version of AI? Just like the Siri, Siri and things like that. And then there's obviously now a little bit more of a higher version of like ChatGPT, where is that communicative? And like you mentioned, ChatGPT 5 is probably going to come out, or excuse me, ChatGPT 4. So dive into first version and what had to be put in place to be able to build the foundation that we see is taking place now.
Yeah, this is a great question, and good perspective. But before we start, I think I need to clarify that I don't represent Siri. Although I work for Apple now, I don't have permission to talk about Siri publicly yet. So I would rather to think about the Google Assistant. I mean Google Assistant 2 years ago, which I have been working with, and think it's kind of more open to discuss. So Google Assistant and together with Alexa and others are last generation of personal assistant. So a big change between Google Assistant and the current ChatGPT, Bard, etc., is the Google Assistant. Least at that time was intent-based system. So that kind of little bit terminology, but what does that mean is the machine has roughly a template. So you ask what's the weather, and then the machine will say the weather at like San Francisco is sunny and rainy. So there's a template, but machine will fill in the empty or new names, item variables in template, and then generate a response. But ChatGPT these days are like they are generating things. They're generating basically token by token, like word, subword by subword. They don't have a template. So as a result, a big change, a big difference is when you want to deploy a new answer, new question for Google Assistant, you need basically collect a new set of template and train it and deploy it. So you can imagine that when you have hundreds or thousands of questions, so the template grow not in exponentially, but very like expensive in a manner. So and that means I call that the traditional personal assistant don't scale. Don't scale means they can handle well a few questions, but when you have infinite amount of questions or infinite amount of customers, customer means you are not personal, but also some big companies, they want to set up their thing. It's very hard to generalize such intent-based personal assistant to these. And ChatGPT or GPT-4, on the other hand, are very scalable. So anybody can come ask questions. I think OpenAI did a great job showing that the machine can understand humans' intent. Intent means preference. So they can understand the human's instruction. You can be very creative to tell the machine what you want to do, and the machine will generate some things. The scalability is so amazing that it seems like suddenly everybody can ask their new questions, and then most of the time, the response are very impressive. But there is also a limitation. I think in the future we'll see. I don't know what will happen, but intent-based. The difficulty is intent-based system usually don't generate something bad, but ChatGPT or generative machine can. It can be racial or like generate some unsafe word or something we don't like. Or small change in the instruction can lead to very different responses. So these are like safety related research, or I think the different company call differently, but helpful, useful, and safe safety in the new generation of ChatGPT. So, but we are definitely entering a new field. The change of the technology will lead to different user interface and will, in the future, hopefully generate a lot of opportunities for future software and the whole industry.
Yeah, what I found very interesting, and I love that the difference, the compare and contrast of what's happening right now, because the intent or the context where, I've seen where I'm messing around with ChatGPT and I'm asking 3 or 4 or 5 questions, but
Yeah,
it also understands the context where we're going and which path by the information that they provided me earlier on, as well as the questions I asked earlier on as well. So that's what I found so interesting, is it really brings everything into context, just like I am talking with like yourself, right? So it's not just one-off questions; it's really building incredible contextual. Now, I want to ask you, because I was listening to a conversation with Mark Zuckerberg, and where he was talking about where, in order to do the Oculus, right, the video and the audio and all that stuff, and we're seeing some really cool stuff with VR and all that fun things, but he said the technology's not even been established yet, right? So you had to build new technology to even create this whole thing, right? Because not only do you have like just video out, but you also have to be measuring and tracking where the eye movements are at to make it more realistic, right? At a very micro
yeah,
level.
yeah.
And that's what I think. I don't think people really respect or have like a context of like, oh, I didn't even realize all that goes into developing and creating and building. And I know you've worked with Google as well as Apple now. I know you're not able to share too much on the back end, back doors. I'm not asking you to do that, of course, but really it's more of just giving context around what needs to happen or the things that need to be built first before that bigger XYZ product even launches or even is even established. And I know we're seeing massive leaps and bounds, but I'd love for you to just talk about like the first, now we're seeing compound effect, but before, it's 10 years of making small steps, baby steps or whatever. And then all of a sudden now we're seeing everything kind of hit the fan in a good way. So I just wanted maybe you could share some of the context around that.
Yeah, this is a very hard question, and I personally don't agree with Mike that the eye tracking. I think eye tracking is the technology is probably more ready than he described at that time. I think eye tracking these days in VR, AR is getting better and better, and for example, the Vision Pro, the eye tracking is very solid. But coming back to the big picture, I think usually in industry, we have two ways to explore new directions. One way is more traditional. So, for example, if we have a metric, and then people will try to optimize this metric, try different models, and try different training data, and we see the metric going higher and higher. Another way is is not optimizing the metric; is just deliver demos. I think a very good example is how ChatGPT was developed. When ChatGPT is released, it's more like a demo, and everybody try it, and then people are blown away. I was blown away. Like that time, I was like, oh, the machine can understand the human's instructions so well. Even I think some friends in OpenAI didn't expect the ChatGPT get such a big success. But demo is a way you get interaction with the user and see their feedback and then iterate and get mature. So these are two ways, like metric based optimizing the metric, deliver demos are the two ways to try new things. But these days, I think there are so many smart people, very hardworking startups. They try different approach. They show demos to not only consumers but also enterprise, and admires execute or like the managers. They try to build demos to deliver, which they call MVP. And then later on, when they more get established, they optimize the metric based on demo and hopefully deliver their success. I think during my PhD, when I learned my stuff, so metric based approach has been more like a dominant like a process for academia world. But when I did my startup, I realized, oh, demo probably is more dominant in the startup or new technology period. Yeah, you never know whether technology is success. It's just everybody has their guess and then they try it. Yeah, I think many big, even these days, many, for example, big venture capitals or startup or under big companies, executives make mistakes. when they saw demo, they feel like, oh, this is ready, but turns out it's not, and a lot of money were wasted. But people get lessons. So I think these days we have so many things going on. I'm not very optimistic that all the demos built from ChatGPT or GPT-4 will succeed at the end of the day. Some of them may succeed, but most of them will be kind of wasted. But even a few that can succeed, it's also a good thing because that can make a very enormous impact in the future.
Yeah, and speaking of impact, this is what I found so interesting. And I think you and I we talked about this offline a little bit, where like you could use a phone to, get on social media and just waste your time and watch, TikToks and whatever, Instagram, right? Or you could come over here and build a brand, or you could do a podcast, or you could do, trade stocks, right? So the whole point is you could use it as a resource, right? In different avenues, but it's dependent upon the user. But that's what I'm noticing with like this AI stuff, right? We're using it almost like elementary, right? Where, okay, hey, we can write a blog post now quicker. Really? That's all we're doing? I mean, we got these amazing tools. And don't get me wrong, like that's awesome. That's fantastic. But it's like it's like level one out of like a level a million, right? That we could really leverage this system, these processes for business, for integration, for I see it democratizing it in international really international relationships and geographics and all this stuff. I mean, just talent pool and all this crazy things, productivity. But I'm curious. You mentioned obviously the future of it, where it's going. You're excited about it. What do you think? Is it lack of information or lack of knowledge that a lot of individuals don't have in regards to how to apply this stuff instead of just basic stuff, level one, level two, where it's like, okay, we're writing blog posts, we're writing copy, we're editing our videos, and repurposing it. Yeah, that's cool, but it's like there's a whole nother level that we could really gravitate toward and elevate toward. What do you think needs to happen in order for us to hit that next level?
I view this problem as how much creativity you want to get from your tool. My guess is the more customized, the better creativity you will get. What I mean is, suppose you, Christian, is like you generate content. Suppose all the company like OpenAI or Google, the whole Google, just work for you. They want to optimize all your options, and then you will get a very, very good tool for that. Because they will care about what your storyline look like and how to save your time, how to make sure you have like fit into your thinking style. But the cost is very high, so we cannot afford to have build a very customized assistant for every content creator. And we can I even don't know whether we will have a customized model for every startups or mid-size companies. So we need to find a balance between customized or general solution. And also the obviously the technology is improved, right? So I think before ChatGPT, I believe that customized model always win because my experience in Google Cloud is like every big small enterprise customer want their own customized solution. But they didn't know underneath we need to pay the price, maintaining, deploying, and improving, like updating all these customized model is very expensive. But when ChatGPT come out, I think at the beginning people realize, oh, one chat model can be deployed, not deployed, but used by different customers. So a lot of startups just build on their like new product by calling GPT APIs, and they're generalized pretty well. But the question now become how to differentiate because everybody can call GPT and they can build a wrapper, build their app on top of that. But when you look at the like app A, app B, what's the difference? Then people think about how to build their models and then build their data. it's kind of like a loop, right? At the beginning, we thought we need to do customized model, and ChatGPT says no, we don't do like customized model, general solution. And then the new app developers said, oh, we need to build a customized model again to place their users. It's a mysterious question. I don't know. I'm very curious about the answer whether customer customized solution will win or generalized solution will win. But I guess at the end of the day, when the new developer, new users want more powerful, more creative tools, the user will be the winner. So you will wait until the either OpenAI or Google have more better solution, or the new startup will have better solution. You will choose whatever you like most in the future.
Because basically what you're saying here, I just want to make sure I'm tracking this, because this is also one of the thing about, the company you built, 2016, 2018, where you're basically saying, okay, and we see this a lot in AI, where the data that you feed it and the questions you ask, the prompts that you give it, and then it responds, and then obviously you iterate your questioning back and forth to get a better, whatever response. That information then is logged in its data, and it's data in the back end, which of course we understand. Well, now it's not only has all this other information that it's gathered, but now it's also learning more and more as people are getting more and more, which obviously becomes smarter, and the margin of error goes down drastically, which is good. My question is, by leveraging this in today's businesses, or interactions, or whatever it is, right? Hey, you know what? I've maybe had a dialogue with customer service at XYZ company, and maybe it's a month later on, and they remember the conversation we had and said, hey, Lingling, I noticed that you came in from because your tires were XYZ and you need another round of change, and do you need an oil change now, or whatever it is, by the data that it's bringing in. So it's very customized, like you mentioned, to that individual, to that user, consistently. Correct. It's not like every time I log in or every time I engage with this thing, right? It's a new conversation. No, it's gathering the data that we've already had. It's almost like you and I, being friends for 40 years. We've got years of history or something like that. So now when we next time we see each other, it's just different, right? We can talk deeper, et cetera, right? So is that kind of what you're basically saying? Because that feedback loop, because of that data, and that's the quick iterations of it.
Yes. So I think we are jumping a little bit from creative tools to like customer service tool. The difference is subtle between the two, because when you do a very creative tool, like is a, for example, Mid Journey, you recognize the improvement right away. But when we talk about customer service tool, for example, we can pull out the user's history like 2 months ago. This technology speaking is not hard, but from the like the feedback perspective, it's pretty hard. I can give you an example. First, does the company allow you to keep users record? Second, if you can pull out users record, how did you know when when your machine recognized the well or recognized it wrongly? Because then you need someone to look at the feedback. Because the user and the user who talk with the machine are not the user who pay for your product. So all these data protection and also the user feedback evaluation stuff are the loop is very long. So so that's why I think even today, with all this amazing process, amazing progress in AI, in natural language processing, I feel enterprise level new applications are still need time to educate the customer to find a new business model. So enterprise product always need more time to get mature or support. I think Databricks, for example, Databricks take 10 years. Like other startups also take 5 years, 10 at least to get mature. But you can imagine some enterprise, so not sorry, not enterprise, but consumer level product can get success even quicker. So the new technology probably will encourage new business models we don't know these days. I don't know whether I answer your question, but
No,
that's in
you
my mind.
did, you did. Because as you're talking, I'm just thinking about how there's a lot of data that's being allocated, right? And
Yeah,
what I'm thinking about is you just for example, I know Walmart has a huge supply chain, and
yeah,
I know that they anticipate that they lose, hundreds of millions of dollars of resources, right? Whether it's food, whether it's whatever, right, through shipping in their supply chain. Well, leveraging AI, they're able to identify, and I don't know how it integrates with blockchain at all. Technology. I'd like to get your response on that, AI and blockchain. But where it's now all of a sudden that AI, instead of relying on people that make mistakes, the AI is able to gather all that data from all supply chains very quickly and efficiently, optimize that very quickly, and then be able to decrease that error very quickly and efficiently as well. And
yeah.
so I just see that as a massive application in regards to decrease of waste in the world, but also just optimizing the supply chain to ensure that we're getting the best product, the best whatever, in the most efficient time. And like you were just mentioning as well, just there's so many different other avenues. Do you see because there's been a lot of evolution definitely within the last year to 12 months about AI. Do you think a lot of these enterprise companies will jump on very quickly and integrate it into their supply chain, their manufacturing, their healthcare, their businesses, right? Or do you think it's going to take a while for the mass enterprise to be able to actually mass integrate?
Great question. So, I work with a lot of enterprise customers, like a smaller one when I did my startup, bigger one when I was in Google Cloud. So I think definitely these days, we are seeing a lot of hypes. So these hypes like GPT or AI, generative AI, definitely helps to advertising the new product to try the enterprise, because in those enterprise leaders mind, they always afraid of being like left out. They will be worrying that they cannot catch the new train. So they always have some idea like, let's try some new things, ask their team to do this. But under the hood, I still feel these days there are two types of like AI deployment. One is as is traditional, so like using AI to optimize their existing like the pipelines. For example, you talk about logistic or like Walmart things. So that they already that in that scenario they already have some pipeline, and they just need AI to provide more information or help to make the recommendation better, or provide things. So they are in using the AI to improve the old pipeline. Another way I think is the new technology happens in the last 6 months is generative. So let the machine to write an article for you, or let the machine to compose a deck or the draft of video for you. So everything is composed by machine. So generate new content you have no idea before you start. So those generative models are harder to to deploy, to train, to update, to inference. Sometimes I joke with my enterprise friend saying that you want to build, I guess I said you want to build a new ChatGPT, but you didn't know that when you deploy new ChatGPT, the cost you paid to the GPU, to the cloud vendor, you will be higher than you calling the OpenAI APIs. And maybe even higher than calling the bar or cloud things. Like, but the big companies already, or like the leaders of generative AI already spend tons of effort to optimize these. But most enterprise customers don't really know what's inside or what kind of cost behind the thing. So they are not ready. And I feel, at least in my understanding, either generative model as a new product or using AI to optimizing existing pipeline, still two different types. And I feel enterprise customer need to figure out how to use that, especially the second category, how to use the generative model and how to benchmark, how to maintain that. If they cannot figure out a way, probably we will see a bubble. They run to deploy generative AI and then later found that, oh, that doesn't help us too much, but create a lot of kind of like trash things, trash projects. The one interesting thing is in AI, you can always think of a lot of features to work on. For example, you talk about Alexa. You can think about, oh, there are like 100. I can think about 100 ways to improve Alexa, but that's these 100 features matter a lot. Most of the time, we don't. So the same thing is for enterprise. When the leaders are very excited about new things, they will spend resources, allocate human to work on this. But later, when they found that there's no clear like feedback or like returns, sometimes they will back off and then the project will be canceled. I hope they will find a healthy way, but I don't expect the change of enterprise business will change like within a few months.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I want to get your perspective, what you're seeing at the macro side, because I mean, you're very well connected. You work with, Google and Apple, some of these very large enterprises, and it is interesting to see kind of the adaptation of it and the integration of it. I see it beneficially helping, but also it takes much more time, energy, and effort and resources to be able to properly integrate it. And by the time they integrate it, then everything is updated and so forth, and whatever. I'm curious, just kind of diving back a little bit on these machine learning and these models, specifically I mentioned in the beginning here state of the art vision language models and spearheading groundbreaking projects. Now in this kind of thing, you focus on on that front end side of things. What when you're working at this angle, okay, and I know Apple is very technologically advanced and things that we just take for granted very easily, right? Just different features that make the user experience just very streamlined. And I know you're not able to share some stuff like that. I definitely understand that. But I really want to ask, when you are working on it, on these projects, what are the like the red flags that you have to be aware of when integrating this? And I'm talking about I know, and again, I'm not a coder or anything or a computer scientist, but I do understand that when you do one thing over in another code, a lot of times it messes up something else. And when you do something else, it messes up one thing. It's almost like a chain reaction. You got to really kind of, it's like building a castle of sand or something like that. So it's tough, right? So you just always have to be there's always optimizations, always modifications, always things, right? There's always a bug somewhere and you got to find it out, and there's these problems you have to solve. So help us understand how you go about when you are finding something, and how AI or maybe internal AI has helped you kind of optimize where those problems are out to solve those problems faster.
Okay. So again, for Apple, I really not didn't get any approval to talk about this, but I would recommend a book. I think Tony Fadell's Build. That the book was pretty popular on Amazon. Tony Fadell was previously VP in Apple. He was the main people behind one key person behind iPhone, iPod, like those new products. So that's the way showing explaining how he built those stuff. And I think that book, the book describes, still have a big influence and very inherited in the Apple DNA. But come back to the AI stuff. So I think one lesson I learned from my personal experience, I think I have more launches in Google impact almost a lot of cloud users. My feeling is the more customer you have, the harder you will see when you upgrade a new product. Upgrade means you like change the AI model behind it dramatically. why there are two levels, like reasons. One is more organizational level, another is product level. So let's talk about product level. Product level, when you have new AI, it's very likely the AI will improve in some aspect, but it will very rare that AI improve the previous one in every aspect. So in this case, the AI will say, you will see that AI will degenerate in some big or small metric. So how can you afford, say, upgrade this new model and tolerate the degenerations in some specs? So in this way, it's easier to develop a new model than like upgrading the old one. One such example is Bard. So because I think I have a very Bard was developed after I left Google, but I really appreciate my former colleagues' effort, because most people didn't realize how hard it is to develop Bard, because we already have a search engine. The Google search engine is probably one of the most successful like AI these days, generate a lot of revenue. So when we replace the search engine with new technology, there is a huge risk, a lot of pushbacks. Bard come out in a way that is a separate model, separate product, and Bard, I think my former colleagues make a lot of efforts to make that very efficient. I think these days I feel Bard is more efficient than ChatGPT or GPT-4. And also they try a lot of effort to prevent Bard to generate harmful response. Sometimes the Bard even feel a little dumb, but just because they want to reduce the risk. So a new product, come back to the conclusion, a new product is always easier than upgrading old product when you have tons of users. Another thing is what I observed in enterprise world is when you upgrade the new AI, the organizational factor will be important. For example, when one leader has a big team working the old product, when you say, "Oh, I need change the whole product," the organization will change, and the scope will change. Sometimes the leader will push back. I can give you an example, like when we did customer service, when we pitched some like the big company. At the beginning, we didn't realize who will push back. We thought the customer experience VP will support us, but later we found that's a very good in our startup. But later we found that the VP was very against, because once we use AI to replace human, he used to manage 100 people or more. Then you will expect he will manage probably 5 people later. So his scope was reduced, and he will come out different challenges, like what happens if your machine is wrong, what happens like the maintenance goes wrong, upgradation comes out, a lot of questions. But under the hood, he feel very insecure. I'm not blaming anybody, but I think that's human nature, that when our job was threatened by the machine, we definitely can find new ways. But before we make the change, there's always some insecure feeling from us to embracing the new changes, especially when we have a lot of a big team or multiple big teams. The dynamic will be very, very complicated.
It is, and like you mentioned, there's just so much that goes into it, and it is also interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a different point that I didn't think about. Definitely, when you're working with Google, you have two different products, and they kind of coincide a little bit, but also you have to have those different features and so forth, totally drastically separate. And then, of course, you were mentioning, the adaptation as well as the evolution of this new technology. It's going to optimize and be more productive for ourselves, and more efficient in different ways, but that also means that we may be downsizing because we may not need as many, heads in the office, right? And that's okay because now you're becoming, a third more efficient with, a third less cost, right? And it just makes, business sense. When you're looking at, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of what's happening right now at a very very quick pace, and specifically, obviously we're talking about AI, we're talking about machine learning, and the base foundation. Now, something I learned about, like, using a calculator. A calculator is fantastic. I'll give you the right answer, but I have to make sure that I put in the information correctly into the calculator. Otherwise, it will give me the wrong data. Do you feel like that could be the same with kind of this technology now, or is it because AI is leveraging so much data that it's actually smarter in that relationship, that they'll say, hey, you input this calculus, just as an example, wrong. Therefore, this answer is actually XYZ because of all the data that I have. Unlike a calculator, where it's just kind of a one-to-one input. I'm just curious, what do you see on how to navigate that? Because I think that's one of the big concerns for a lot of people, is just like, where's this? How do we know what's the right data, and contextually and so forth?
Um, yeah, I never thought about the compare with like a calculator, but a quick response is when we do use a calculator, there's always one correct answer there we can examine. But for creative tool, a lot of time the result return even not be consistent. So because the nature of like the GPT, like GPT is generated one token, like using some sampling, generate one token, and use this sampling generate another token. So a lot of time, the last version of GPT and the new version of GPT don't exactly generate the same response, or even sometimes there's some randomness. The response will be different, and it's also these days very hard to evaluate or personally like benchmark the different instruct like learning. So basically, we can be the user can be very creative to say, oh, I can change a different prompt to provide different kind of instructions, and the response is good, then I'm happy. But how can we measure or compare two GPT models, saying which A is better than B? So measuring this is kind of very, very challenging. Sometimes even researchers like us, for me, for example, it's pretty easy to compare some base model like GPT-3 or GPT-2. We can easily compare, look at the benchmark. But if we say there's two versions of instruct tuning, how can know one is better than another? We need to do a tons of human evaluation. Of course, another easy way is ask GPT-4 to tell us. But basically, comparing this instruction like inspired AI is challenging. Is I often compare these days the GPT, like compare, like for me it's more like the search engine early days. So different companies have different benchmarks, but at the end of the day, the user are the people who make the call. So if more and more users come to Google, for example, there will be less and less user in Yahoo, etc. So the as long as the user feels okay to like useful to visit the ChatGPT or GPT-4, I think the GPT-4 will getting better and better. What I mean is, when we think about search engine 20 years ago, search engine doesn't always return correct answer. For example, if you look at some query, like there are many pages. If you go early days, if you go page 2, page 3, you probably find a lot of irrelevant answers. But that's okay as long as the user feel something is helpful in the first page or the top 2, top 10, they will keep using this. And debugging search engine early days are not easy either. So these days we definitely see some more complicated AI like GPT harder to track, but as long as the user are like that, as long as the company who host the GPT or develop GPT find the business model to support that, that will be there will be bigger and bigger change in the future. But currently I haven't seen another business model as innovative, as game changing as such as in 20 years ago. So that part is still missing. And I'm kind of optimistic. I feel even these days people feel a lot of like hypes. I feel there probably will be bigger changes in the future. Just we don't know yet.
Well, I think this is why I get so excited where it's happening in my lifetime, where everybody's talked about web 2, and now it's web 3, and now leveraging AI, and how that's just how it's going to drastically. I mean, this is a huge leap forward in a lot of things, and how it's going to integrate in so many different things we don't even expect. And that's why I think it's just going to be really fun talking about it. And I want to bring up one thing here. You actually wrote a really cool article on LinkedIn. You published this a while back, October 26, 2022. So it's been a minute, and everything's been involved from here since then. But you talk about peering into the future of speech and visual recognition. I want to kind of highlight one thing and double click on it. Computer vision has many sub problems, including classification, detection, segmentation, 3D reconstruction, tracking, visual search. In contrast, speech recognition fields mainly consider two key problems: speech to text and text to speech. So on that point specifically, you wrote this in October 26, 2022. It's been a minute now. Okay, we're in July, excuse me. Now we're in July. And how has your opinion changed in those two different categories and the evolution just since then?
I think I will still keep my old opinion. Even to extreme extent, a little bit more extreme the extent. So in the article, I was saying, oh, there will be one speech model, but there will be many vision models. So basically, I'm talking about unifying all the speech tasks into one. So these days, after Whisper, after Google's USM, like Audio Palm, all these papers, sorry this term, but it's so familiar with me. So basically, people will expect speech model will be, in future speech model will be speech to text, text to speech, also can do speech translation. So when we talk in English, respond in French or something translated French. So all these are benefiting from the large language model and the strong speech encoder. In that case, speech model will be like unified. But for vision, I still feel there are multiple ways to do this. For search engine, I think clip models are kind of more popular, but for 3D reconstruction or different kind of VR, different tracking, they still need separate models. But I would had a more extend like version is the new generative AI provides a new interface. So behind the model are building blocks, but the generative AI is a new user interface. If it's successful, that could be huge. Like previously, people get used to like search engine. We have the bounding boxes, like a box search engine. You type some keywords, search things. But these days, when we talk with ChatGPT, realize the new interface have more power or flexibility. When we use Mid Journey, we realize we can use different kind of input to guide the generation. We haven't, at least me as a user, haven't get fully used to those new interface. But and I even don't know how this interface will evolve in the near future. But every change of user interface, the impact will be huge. Like if Steve Jobs is still alive these days, he will probably be more excited. Like he will think about build the next iPhone, etc. But um, technology, what I'm saying is technologies, I still keep the opinion, but interface, we don't know yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate the perspective. I was just curious if it changed and adjusted, but in fact, it kind of allowed you to really focus on it even more so. When you're and you mentioned something I want to loop back on, which I want to highlight because I get excited about this. Where because of AI, leveraging AI, the ability to talk to someone in other different languages, right? And let's be honest, holistically, everything has been very English dominated, right? Other countries have to learn English because it is very dominated. And that's okay for us because obviously we're from, US. But there are those that want to get access to it. And what I think is so fun, I just look at democratizing any more information, and the more information is democratized, where now all of a sudden there's less barriers. And having a language as a barrier, it helps just everybody elevate at a higher social economic status, education level, all sorts of things, right? And even the dialogue and maybe even conversation and negotiation in business, right? When you're talking to people, or politics as well, because do you see that as well, leveraging AI and that speech and that ability to talk to someone in Russian? And
Yes.
you're very and I'm curious. Right now, we're not at that point where it can be fluent yet, where obviously it's very quick, but we're headed that direction. What do you think the time? I mean, specifically on this note here, because you brought this up. What do you think the timeline is? I know that's speculative, but I'm just curious on that specifically with the AI, mass movement and the language and everything that we got going on, to be able to very quickly streamline the conversation, but it's translating as we're discussing or as we're talking. What do you think that timeline is?
Yeah. So, um, before we looking forward, looking back, I think the one big change was 1 year ago or 2 years ago, or even like 2 year, 1 or 2 years ago. So when we do speech recognition, so basically we have language ID. So when we talk or we hear somebody talk, like we kind of pre know is English or not, or from which country it is. So we when we see the language change, language ID change, we turn off the old model, the previous language model, and change it to the new language model. Basically, translating English is very different in translating uh, like Chinese or Korean. Um, but these days, because of Whisper, because of like Google's USM, all these things, so you can talk about basically the model. You can have one model to listen all these things. But when I play with Whisper, I still feel there are small
Mm-hmm.
like flaws there, some mistakes there. I guess it takes time to fix all of them. And Whisper, of course, do not do detect end of speech, which means you need when we. I don't know whether you use the ChatGPT app in your phone, but basically you need to push it, say I finish recording, and then hit translate. So previously in for example Google Assistant or Siri, the machine automatically detect end of speech. So when you finish, there is a period of silence, and then he finish and decoding generally things. So Chat Whisper didn't do this, like bring some inconvenience in human interaction, but like the benefits is their infrastructure is greatly improved, and also they can do this parallel very efficiently. But coming back to these, so I think there's still a lot of ways to optimize speech user interaction. But the key question is who will benefit, or like who will get money. So when we look back, the last generation of personal assistant, I think, of course, serious difference thing. I shouldn't talk about this, but when we look at Google Assistant and Alexa, neither Google nor Amazon earn a lot of money from them, or even didn't earn money, lose money. Then it's different compared with search engine. Like search engine, Bing or Google search earn a lot of money, but assistant doesn't. So the question is, we need a lot of investment in the future to improve, like whisper, improve speech, make that multi lingo, or like you don't we make that more powerful. But the question is, will we benefit a lot? Will the company benefit a lot by paying all these costs? Um, Currently, the answer is not clear. But we definitely can see Google will keep pushing the boundary, and I don't know how much like OpenAI will push in the boundary. So, but it's unclear how they can. Think that we definitely see the technology are improving, but the technology improved speech recognition is very expensive. So I'm wondering which company will benefit from this, because neither Google Assistant nor Alexa, uh, like earn a lot of money from it. In the future, I would say a more healthy business model probably will have the technology involved more efficiently.
Which is awesome, you know, and I just think it's so cool how there's just so many applications with AI. And what's also fun, and this kind of will obviously it's like a fulfilling prophecy, if you will. As this starts hitting mainstream and excitement, a lot of investors are deploying more money into these ventures, which then of course expedite the learning curve and the process and the technology and what's necessary to just get everything rocking and rolling. And naturally, there's going to be it's going to hit culture and mass global, where these enterprise companies and institutions will have to adapt and integrate to even stay up with everything. And so I think it's just going to be fun. I get excited about not only what we just talked about in regards to language, but also healthcare and how it's going to iterate that in emerging countries and all sorts of fun stuff. Ling, I mean, I really appreciate you being on here. Just sharing your wisdom, sharing your knowledge about this topic specifically, and really just talking about obviously the iterations, what you had to do, build the foundation, but also your successful past, and getting your PhD, as well as running and creating a startup and having a really successful clean exit, and now working for Google, and now working currently for Apple, and being able to share your wisdom in this category. So for those that want to reach out to you, I know you post a lot of articles and other content out there. Ling, for those that want to reach out or maybe just stay connected with you and follow some of your content, how do they reach out to you, my man?
Oh, you know my email. Feel free to ping me anytime. And I posting on LinkedIn, and I benefit from that. So I can give you a fun example. Is Once I was reading some post from another like person who at that time left Tesla. So he was saying, "I'm leaving Tesla. I'm just out of my curiosity. I click their LinkedIn page and jump to their web page, and then look at his page, realize, oh, I like sorry, not Alexa, Texas. So I realized that Tesla had way more launches during that person's tenure. Like they kind of launch a new system every 2 months. I remember weekly, but at that time I was blown away because at that time my car was updated after about 2 years. Like Lexus was kind of, they have new model every 2 years, but Tesla has new system upgrade every 2 months. So that things give me some intuition that I should buy the stocks. But what I'm saying, that LinkedIn is really place to change ideas and then benefit from that. I also found a lot of your posts very exciting, and I hope to read more from that.
Definitely. Well, that's awesome. That's a fun story, and I bet you're glad you bought some Tesla stock. I have some SpaceX, so you can't go wrong by kind of investing in Elon Musk, huh? So, but Tesla is a whole different it's with their AI platform, and the integration, how they leverage it in vehicles, and the trajectory of what's happening there. It's very exciting to see this. Ling, again, I really appreciate you being on here, guys. To make it easy, I will put all those links in the description. His LinkedIn, his email as well. and some of his research out there as well. So I'll make sure I link that all down in the description. Guys, that is my guest, the one and only at principal computer scientist at Apple, Liangliang Cao. Guys, that is Journey with Christian David's podcast. Until next time, be uncommon if you can.
Thank you, Christine.